Hello and welcome to my bivariate presentation. In my research, I attempt to discover factors that influence attitudes towards gender equality. I've chosen to focus on the Arab world and use the Arab Barometer 2007 dataset, which has an N of 8,122. I use a variety of research methods which are listed here. My dependent variable is an index I have compiled consisting of the indicators Q5051 to Q5057, which measure support for a number of gender equality issues and assigns the respondent a score out of 4 on each issue, with higher values being assigned for responses which indicate higher support. The Cronbach's alpha score for my index is 0.7720, indicating that the indicators are related enough to combine. In my preliminary research, I have found a number of suggestions as to what factors generally increase levels of gender equality. Jeffrey Sachs, in his book entitled The End of Poverty, describes gender inequality as a major impediment to economic development, while Stephen Lewis, in his 2005 Massey Lectures, suggests that a key to improving gender equality is the accessibility of education. Based on Sachs's work, I hypothesized that since gender inequality impedes economic prosperity, those who have attitudes supporting gender equality are more likely to be economically prosperous, and I used the indicator Q716 INCO, which measures a family's net income, to test this hypothesis. Based on Mr. Lewis's work, I hypothesized that higher levels of education lead to higher levels of support for gender equality, and I used Q703, which asks respondents to identify their level of education, to test this. I also use Q711, asking the respondent to identify their religious affiliation, and I predict that there will be a relation between religious affiliation and attitudes towards gender equality. My first experiment compares gender equality with economic prosperity. My p-value suggests statistical significance, however my tau-c result indicates very little relation between the two variables. Although the yellow highlighted values are what would be expected in a positive relationship between the variables, such a relation is not the case. As demonstrated by my Sheffe test, which was done before I reduced my independent variable categories into quintiles, the lowest income brackets, groups 1 and 2, have means which rank in the middle of my dataset, while group 6, a middle income bracket, has the lowest mean. This data suggests that there is not a relation between income and attitudes towards gender equality. That being said, the results giving highest earners the highest means, as highlighted in blue, may suggest a relation that appears only after a certain level of income is reached. This could be pursued by further research. The next experiment concerns levels of education. Once again, my p-score suggests that my findings are not the result of chance, but my tau-c indicates little to no relation between the two variables. It seems that those in the illiterate category are comparatively more prone to extreme values regarding gender equality, as demonstrated by the values highlighted in yellow. Contrary to expected results, my ANOVA test reported primary education, highlighted in pink, as having the third largest mean score, indicating a higher overall level of support for gender equality than those who have second or college educations. These results show a lack of support for my hypothesis regarding gender equality and levels of education. My final bivariate cross-tabulation is between levels of support for gender equality and religion. Once again, my results are statistically significant. My Kramer's V of 0.50511 is so high that it suggests a redundancy, but upon re-examining my index and the independent variable, I reject the notion that the indicators measure the same things. The most substantial differences between those who identified themselves as Muslim and those who identified themselves as Christian are highlighted in yellow. The mean difference of my t-test indicates a substantial difference in attitudes overall between the two groups. My research has demonstrated a lack of support for those hypotheses in which I suggest that attitudes regarding gender equality are related to levels of education and economic prosperity. My research has also demonstrated support for my hypothesis that a relation exists between attitudes regarding gender equality and religious affiliation. Since the previously mentioned authors were discussing more practical measures of gender equality as opposed to personal attitudes, My findings do not suggest any sort of error on their part. Suggestions for further research in addition to the one previously mentioned may include an inquiry as to whether attitudes towards gender equality are dependent not only to religious denomination, but also the level of involvement. Here's the syntax I used.